Now, why would Lindsay Tanner, the former finance minister, say that the media is all about entertainment and has little tolerance for complex social and economic issues? We'll ask him that this morning when he joins us here in the studio. But first, what are the Sunday papers reporting around the country? Silly question, really, Gerard Henderson. 2 days on and the royal wedding is still selling lots of newspapers.
Well, I'm a Republican, Barry, but I think this is fair reporting. There's a great deal of interest in this. It was a great occasion. I watched it. I had to go out on Friday night. I watched the replay. It was a fine event, and you had a royal couple who, unlike 30 years ago, this royal couple clearly liked one another. He said to her she was beautiful. She said to him, "Are you happy?" It was a nice occasion, and I think there's a lot of public interest. There's a lot of reportage in the media, but if I were an editor, I'd run it on page one, and I'd run it for some days.
Not too many Republicans would have watched it live and then the replay.
No, I had to go out. I went out and then I watched the replay. But look, it's a very important historical event in Westminster Abbey, and all the historic symbols around. For those of us brought up Catholics, there was even a portrait of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour on the within the Abbey, and I thought that was a great show too. So look, I think it's mean and trivial and a bit juvenile for those people in Australia and elsewhere who want to ridicule this function. Other weddings aren't ridiculed. Other religious functions are ridiculed. So a Christian wedding in Westminster Abbey should be respected, even if you are a Republican.
Carrie-Anne?
I don't think that it's... I mean, to say that it's mean and trivial to criticise it or to find that perhaps it doesn't suit people in Australia to either watch or to become swept up in the whole glamour and occasion and pomp of it, I don't think that can be classed as mean or trivial.
Well, I wouldn't say...
I think that there is absolutely no relevance to our lives, Australian lives. And if you like to watch a big party, fine, good, but in terms of saying that this has any importance to Australia at all, I don't think it does.
And yet people lapped it up.
Well, people like it. I mean,
of course they like it up.
Just the figures that are in 7 million people watched it on Australian television. That's more than watched the opening and closing ceremony of the Sydney Olympics.
I can't wait to see what the Republicans do when we actually have a republic in Australia. What's the main, do you think, festival that will be held by the first President of Australia? I mean, how can they compete with this pomp and ceremony, Barry? It was just an amazing spectacle. I have to say, 31 years ago, I staged a sit-in in my room. I was such a Republican. I was living in a community and they were having a party, watching the black and white television as this went. And 10 minutes into my sit-in, I thought, this is pretty dull here. After the revolution, it was all a bit dreary.
And the same is true. I mean, the Pope's visit to Australia, the recent Pope's visit to Australia, was hugely successful. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people liked watching it, including a lot of young Australians. And you'll see with this royal wedding as well, a lot of young people liked it. I mean, some of the baby boomers and older may be a bit cynical about it, but a lot of young Australians liked it.
Well, I think the question is being raised today, if they can put on a show like that with new, attractive people, then what hope have the Republicans got in the short term?
And I guess the difference is with the President, you know, he'd actually be elected, wouldn't be inherited privilege. She. Yeah. And the Pope actually is also...
But, Carrie-Anne, this morning some speculation about what the Queen might have said to Julia Gillard.
Well, on a blog, Independent Australia, the Queen has apparently made it clear that an Australian Republic would in nowhere impair the affection and special relationship enjoyed between the two countries, and has said basically get on with it. And this is written by Tess Lawrence.
And doesn't she say there that she wouldn't be offended if Australia became a republic while she was still alive?
Absolutely, and she doesn't want to be seen as, you know, having to die off before such a thing became possible. And this is something that they have said for a long time, the monarchy. They've said it right back to when I recall writing this stuff back in Keating's time. So they're not changed their position. It's just that there's no political leadership in Australia to take this forward.
And is this a sentiment, Gerard, do you think that the Queen would want Julia Gillard to pass on to the country?
I think the position of the palace had previously been attributed to Prince Charles. The position of the palace was always that we should do what we want to do. I think that report would be inaccurate to the extent that the Queen would be advocating this. What the Queen would be saying is that if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Whether that needs to be passed on, I think it's fairly widely known, but, I mean, these are matters for Australia. There was a serious report some years ago, that about 20 years ago, the Queen was upset when New Zealand looked like they were going alone, because I think she thought that New Zealanders would have a different attitude to the monarchy than the Australians. But I think it is expected that one day Australia might become a republic, and certainly the royal family doesn't want to stand in the way of that. but that's going to be difficult to achieve, but certainly in the lifetime of the current monarch.
Now, Chris Julia Gillard has written, or perhaps dictated her own account of the big day.
She has. She's dictated it to Claire Harvey. This is what she has to say. This was the story of two young people in love. Despite all the occasion, the grandeur of it, the whole day managed to have an intimate feel. It's their story. Just a story told in a different way to a wedding in a suburban backyard. Because when you look at the pictures, Barry, it's very much like my wedding, I thought. Do you think?
Well, I didn't invited to your
I think
wedding.
the family portrait sums it up, doesn't
But
it?
she's buried the lead, Barry, because, of course, the thing that we want to know are the things that we couldn't see and the things that happened behind the scenes. And so she talks about the drinks at 3 p.m. and she talks about the speeches. Now, Prince Charles spoke and then Prince William spoke. There was teasing in the sort of father and son kind of way, as you do in a suburban backyard. Prince William basically teasing Charles for being an old bloke, and Prince Charles giving a speech about how one day you're running around after the children, feeding them and looking after them,
As
and
they
then the
do at
next
the
thing you
palace,
know,
yes.
they're adults. Would he be able to find them at the other end of the palace? How often do you think Prince Charles fed the children? Oh, just wondering.
Punchline.
Just wondering out loud. Okay, and so, yes, and then he said he was sure the roles would soon be reversed and they'll be feeding him and looking after him. That'll happen too.
Well, that does sound like a suburban wedding, actually.
It does.
It does, actually. Usually
Okay,
after too many drinks, though. But isn't the point that you're not supposed to talk about what goes on in these dinners? That's against protocol.
Well, maybe she hadn't been briefed.
Did you get death for that?
Well, maybe she didn't care. Maybe she is a Republican. Maybe she will push this forward.
All right, that's the Sunday papers. Now, Lindsay Tanner is about to join us, and he says in his new book that the sideshow syndrome is turning Australian democracy into a sham. But if the media is the big top, who are the clowns?